Imagine falling 200 feet from the top of a cliff and surviving on your own in the wild for 7 whole days and living to tell this incredible story. That is the story of a 25-year-old Angela Hernandez, who was rescued back in 2011 after a tragic fall at an oceanside cliff in Big Sur, California. On that fateful day, Angela Hernandez was traveling from Oregon to Lancaster, Southern California to visit her family. Her trip began on July 5, 2011. By 10 p.m. that night, Angela sent a text to her family informing them that she had decided to take a nap in her car at the parking lot of a grocery store somewhere in the Half Moon Bay, San Mateo County. By 8 a.m. in the next morning, Angela notified her family that she had resumed her driving down to Southern California, and that was the last her family heard from her. When she stopped communicating with her family, they contacted law enforcement and notified them of a possible missing person incident. Angela was a frequent social media user, and the fact that she had gone dark on social media and had not contacted her family was indeed worrisome. Her family had no clue about what had happened. If only they knew how close they had come to closing Angela Hernandez that day. For Angela, her trip home to reunite with her family took a deadly turn when, like a scene out of a horror movie, a small animal stepped onto the road. In an attempt to swerve her Jeep Patriot away from the animal, Angela inexplicably lost control of her vehicle. In a matter of seconds, Angela and her car plunged 250 feet down the cliff. Angela says she doesn't remember much of the fall. All she remembers is that when she woke up, she was still in the car, and water from the ocean had reached her knees. Angela soon realized the precarious situation she found herself in, and as she became more conscious of the situation, she began to feel the pain all over her body. In Angela's words, quote, "Every bone in my body hurt," end quote. At that point, Angela knew she was hanging somewhere between life and death, and that death was more likely outcome if she did not get out of the car immediately. Unfortunately, every window in the car was closed, the power of the car was off, so Angela was left with no other option than to summon some energy to break the window on the driver's side. Thankfully, it worked and she was able to crawl out of the window onto the dry land. At that point, all she could think about was her sister. Angela began to scream her name as she entered panic mode. Her cry for help was futile though. She was 250 feet away from any sort of help. No one would hear her, even if she screamed at the top of her lungs, if she even had enough energy to raise her voice at all. When she realized there was no one coming for her, Angela fell asleep. Her body needed some sort of rest at that time and just decided to shut down. By the time Angela woke up, it was still daylight, but now she could think more clearly, and it was only then that she fully came to terms with what had just happened. She managed to stand up despite the excruciating pain in her shoulders, back, thighs, and hips. Then she saw the wreckage of her car with the roof of the car completely ripped off. The fact that she was just standing there, alive, was nothing short of a miracle, but this was just the start of the miracle. Surviving the crash was one thing, staying alive till she was rescued was another, especially in the physical condition that the wreck left her in. Somehow, Angela made it through. For the next 7 days, which she described as a blur, she entered survival mode. She found a high spot in the rocks where she climbed every day, hoping to catch the attention of people driving across the cliff. Angela's only hope was to yell as loudly as she could to draw attention to herself. It was the only way she could imagine surviving her ordeal. 3 days into her accident, Angela began to feel the effects of the absence of food. She was starving and was massively dehydrated. Ingenuously, she managed to retrieve a 10-inch radiator hose from the wreckage of her car. This was her saving grace. With this hose, she tapped some of the fresh water dripping down the cliff from the natural spring. As the days went by, Angela devoted all her efforts to find new high grounds where she could get to and cry for help at the top of her voice. She did this while battling the rising tides of the ocean's waves every night. What kept Angela going was hope that she would make it out alive and see her family again. She would daydream of the awesome foods she'd get to eat once she was found. She would replay old songs in her head to entertain herself and forget about her situation at the time, and hope did not fail Angela. One morning, Angela woke up on one of her newly found high spots, and just across the shore, she could see a woman walking. Angela screamed for help louder than she ever had all the days before. Then she noticed the woman was with a man as well. To Angela, it felt like a dream. The two campers, Chelsea and Chad Moore, were only taking a walk on the beach when they spotted Angela's wrecked vehicle. On meeting Angela, the couple acted quickly as Chad stayed back to give Angela some fresh water while Chelsea ran to the campground to call for help. Finally, Angela Hernandez was found and rescued. Later, she was airlifted out of the location by CHP helicopter and was taken to Twin Cities Community Hospital in Templeton, California. During her ordeal, Angela had suffered brain hemorrhage, 4 fractured ribs, 2 broken collarbones, a lung collapse, ruptured blood vessels in both eyes, and sunburns on her hands, feet, and face. But somehow, she survived. Her story is such an incredible one, a combination of perseverance, hope, and the miraculous.